McFadden, and I'm listening to the Canned Air podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Canned Air, your tribute to comics and pop culture. I am Jeremy Colley.
I'm Jack Doherty.
I'm Randy Hardenbrook.
And we have a special guest in the studio this week. He's been on the show before, a good friend of mine, and he has to be here for this one because he's just a big Trekkie. Mr. Ryan Donahoe. Ryan, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I like how you sang to me. That was very nice of you. Thank you. We have a special episode for you today. Gates McFadden, Dr. Beverly Crusher herself, we got to talk to. And boy, oh boy, that was a lot of fun. You know, some of these conversations with people like this can be a gamble. Sometimes they're amazing, sometimes they're and sometimes you're like, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
This was a really good one. I thoroughly enjoyed this. She was so nice. Accommodating, just wanting to talk to us. She was just about as curious about us as we were her. You know what I mean?
Well, I believe happy birthday's in order because Jack and Jeremy, we're 7 now.
This is
That's
the birthday
true.
episode.
Yeah, it is. Oh.
Happy 7th birthday.
Happy birthday, guys.
Yeah, 7 years of Canned Air.
What a great present. And on with the podcast.
You can find us on Twitter at Canned Air Pod and on Instagram at canned_air. And if you like what we're doing, want to show some support, head over to patreon.com/Canned Air Pod. $5 a month gets you access to the Canned Air Patreon Pod and other goodies. Speaking of which, I think we need to mail some stuff out, don't we? I was seeing a few addresses on the Patreon page and people who
Are they updating them? Because I know they weren't.
There were just 2. I mean, if they don't update that we can't do anything about it.
I sent the message to all you
to
guys.
those who did.
Yeah.
We got to get that out. And if you are in need of professional representation, our friend Mr. Steve Joyner would love to help you out at 816-605-4561. Does he have a web presence or something we could put on here too?
SJNetwork.com, which I believe is
S-J-Network.com.
That's the actual URL?
Yeah.
It's linked to our website.
Okay.
Go to our website.
All these things we preach to you people. Just go to cannedairpodcast.com. There's a little button for every one of these things.
We've got the answers on there.
We got the answers.
You find an answer that you can't get answered. If you have a question that you can't get answered, send us a message and say,
he's as sure-footed as a mountain goat,
That's
ladies
it.
and gentlemen. All right, and with that all behind us, let's cut right to our interview with Gates McFadden. Gates, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. It's truly an honor to welcome you to the show.
Well, I am a Buckeye, so I had to be here for you guys, you know? Buckeyes forever.
Right? Yeah, that was the first thing on the list here. Born in Cuyahoga Falls. Did you grow up most of your life in Ohio?
I did. I grew up until I went off to college. First it was Cuyahoga Falls, and then we moved to just a few miles away to Silver Lake, which made it so that I could walk to school safely and my mother could work, you know, and it was a safe place. We could just, in the summer, we could just go down and swim pretty much all day when we were done with our chores, you know, so it kind of worked out. They had a really good school, and that was why they wanted us to move there. But I stayed in Ohio, went to high school in Ohio, and then off to college. And that was the last I lived in Ohio.
And what was the name of your high school? Just curious.
Well, it doesn't exist anymore. It exists now. It was called Old Trail. It was an all-girls school, very small, college preparatory, and it was in Fairlawn. And they decided it used to be all the primary school and then high school, and then because they just made a decision to stop the high school, and they did. I had incredible instruction. Like, I had 18 students in my class, so it was pretty amazing. But I think it was just too expensive to maintain all the faculty and everything with that small of a student body. So
right. Sure.
It was either going to be that or Our Lady of the Elms, and at that time I thought, I don't want to wear a uniform, so...
Yeah, understandable. Who would?
Although I ended up being the Catholic scholarship student there at the time. I think... everyone else, there were 2 scholarship students in my class. One was Jewish and one was Catholic. That was me. It was pretty funny, but it was quite an interesting experience for me growing up.
I can imagine. I guess I can't imagine, but I mean, I imagine it would be crazy.
Well, I love Ohio. I mean, I think it's a really beautiful state, and I just wish that it could get a little bit more politically savvy, in my opinion. But I think people from Ohio are so friendly, and we've had so many people who were presidents from Ohio and
That's
things
true.
like that. I think it's a very interesting state. There's lots of universities, and but we've sort of, I don't know, it's changed from way back when, and I think we need to push those, just a little more progressive.
I would have to agree with that, 100%.
Politics.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's crazy. When you're in Columbus, it seems like, typically anywhere you go, not that you don't see your Trump signs here and there, but for the most part, it's Biden-Harris signs. And the second you drive out of town into the country, buddy, it's hard change in landscape. And
not even 5 minutes.
Not even 5, no.
It's like you crest outside the city
it's
limits.
always been fascinating for me. And what's so sad is about how the industry, I remember as a little girl going into Cleveland, and it was like going to Disneyland. It was such a vibrant city, and they had, we would just go to look at the stores and the Christmas decorations, and it seemed magical, And then when the industry the tire industry, so many industries just started to disappear, steel, and it became like a ghost town. It was really sad. And I taught at University of Pittsburgh, and in that whole tri-state area, that was another city. But it went through an amazing renaissance, and I love Pittsburgh. I think it's a really cool city. But, yeah, Ohio is tricky that way. People who aren't familiar with cities or whatever, they can get very I don't know where that comes from. I really don't, because Ohio was not always that way. I think it has to do with just the economy, perhaps.
I just think sometimes, too, I mean, not this isn't the case for everybody, but I think anymore an election is kind of like a football game. Sometimes there are people who are just going to root for who they think their side is, rather than, without listening, without stopping to say, should I be? It's just like, my side has to win. That's who I'm going to root for.
We're going to win this one.
Yeah.
Well,
we are.
It's crazy. I think the part that gets me is that both parties, we spend a ridiculous amount of money. I mean, so many millions.
Oh, yeah.
Probably billions on political campaigns that last for years. And most other countries have like a 5-week, 6-week, 2-month campaign period, and that's it. You can't campaign otherwise because they have often such a different system. But we could have fixed almost all of our educational problems and medical, and we could have paid for everybody's health care if we had not had just a two-party system and spend all this money on elections. I think that's what's really upsetting to me.
I would agree.
It's absurd, and I think that we get so into, no, it's got to be my candidate. And instead, we should all be going, wait a minute, let's stop campaigning for so long, and let's, take some of that money and put it towards things that are going to make us all feel better. That would be so terrific.
That's how you get elected president. Donate all of your campaign money to charity. I guarantee somebody's going to elect you after that.
Yeah, it's
crazy. So how many of you are Trekkies?
I'd say Ryan here has got to be the absolute biggest. I've known Ryan since we met in kindergarten, actually. And we are now looking down the barrel of 40. But as long as I've known Ryan, Star Trek fan. And I know a little bit about it. I think Jack probably be second
I'd
here.
probably say I'm more of a Trekker versus a Trekkie.
I wasn't meaning a Trekkie or Trekker. Anyone who watches the show, kind of, if you like the show,
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't mean like a crazy fan. In fact, I don't think we have crazy fans. I think that's something that was in a time when no shows were on and computers. I remember when we were filming our show, just in that first season, I remember going into Jules Urbeck, who's now this incredible, he was a genius then. He was a friend of Rod Roddenberry's, and he was so into computers and developed all these games for Sony when he was 17 years old.
Wow.
He was just so smart, and I went to visit with Rod one day, Jules' house, and I had never seen a room like that, and that's where the geek thing came from. It was a room that was totally dark. He had floor-to-ceiling machinery. It was all these computers, and it it was just remarkable. And I was like, well, no wonder when some of the fans come up and see us, they can hardly see because they've been in these dark rooms playing video games or something. I mean, it made sense to me, so, you know.
Right.
And I don't think they were so weird at all. It was just that they were finally coming out into daylight, because we have just fantastic fans, and they're all kinds of jobs and things in their lives. I mean, I have surgeons who are fans, and astronauts and astrophysicists, and yes, we have people who watch TV. I mean, when you binge something on TV and you see that person in real life, it's no matter what show it is, it's going to be a weird experience, but a wonderful experience. You know,
Right.
It's just the way it is.
Unless it's Henry Winkler, I can contest for that. That was not a fun experience, but you're right. The fan base for Star Trek is it's like, it reminds me of like the Ghostbusters or something like that. Just a very good group of people, or the Power Rangers. You know, just a very focused. I don't know what the word. Very passionate. Thank you, Randy. Thank you.
Except that I think that Star Trek fans were really the ones who were the most organized and really started doing these conventions. They were before Power Rangers or anything. And
oh, yeah, absolutely.
I think what I also feel strongly about is that most people are really into the future and into being tolerant and all kinds of things and making the world a better place and using your imagination and hoping that there is life besides life on Earth. I think we have people who think in those terms. It's not just about being entertained, but they really love to think about the possibilities of science and technology and adventure all blended together. And as we all know, the first series had something like a cell phone that Kirk was talking into, and now we all have cell phones. I mean, so many of the if iPads, Dr. Crusher had something resembling an iPad that she walked around with all the time. And they have developed a medical tricorder. It has happened. I mean, I think it's really, there's a lot of that, and I think that's partly the difference between Star Wars fans and Star Trek fans, because I think they're both entertaining, but one of them is a lot more science and technology and actually how do we imagine life is really going to be living on a ship, and you have families on a ship, and you have this, and I think that's a very different sort of thing.
I would agree, and it's almost irritating when people try to compare the two things, because it's like they're
so
not the same
it's
thing
totally
at
different.
all. Yeah. I totally know what you mean.
Yeah, and they're both wonderful.
Sure.
They're both wonderful. It's not like one doesn't have to be better than the other, but they are different.
And it's funny because, some of the, the scientists or the astrophysicists, the people you were speaking of earlier, some of them probably are in the fields they are just because they grew up on Star Trek. It challenged their mind in that way to go, have such a career. It's incredible.
Absolutely. We all of us have had countless people who come up to us and say, I grew up watching you and I became this because of your character. I mean, every single one of us. And we know that we were role models, and that's fantastic because I think young people in particular desperately need role models. And, I think it's a wonderful thing if you can provide that. And then, I've told this at conventions, but I had one of the astronauts, the commander of the space shuttle. He got me this NASA clearance, and we were emailing. He was on the space station, and it's because he said I have a kind of a Picard fantasy going, and so you're Crusher. So I wanted to email you, and I said, let's do it.
That is incredible. The reach of these characters that's another thing. I mean, how many people have we talked to on this show, and there's just something about. I don't know. Again, going back to the Star Trek fandom, there's tripping over my own words here.
It's just something that ingrains like just a thirst for wanting to be better and do better, and to just
yeah. And be tolerant, because the whole thing is everybody's so different. We run into all these people, and it's sort of like, get over that. It's not about what you look like. It's about other things. It's about issues. It's about how you treat other people. It's about all kinds of things like that. And that's what really is fantastic. And also, the fact that Gene Roddenberry said, and there's no money. I mean, how great is that? How different would it be if, we didn't have banks the way we do, and it was just a different thing. We were living where everyone there were rules. There have to be some rules, but it's just something where people are learning how to actually be tolerant and to compromise.
It's almost like the ideal future that, we're trying to strive towards, or should be at least.
Hopefully. I mean, you wouldn't tell it looking out the window now, would you?
No, you wouldn't. No, that's why I think, though, it's so easy to be dystopian with what's going on. And believe me, I struggle with it like everyone else. But I have the feeling that's one of the reasons that our show was so popular was because, and I'm talking specifically Next Generation, but others, and I think that was true with Voyager and just others. It was a very positive show, and
Absolutely.
as was the first show. But you really saw that, it could happen. You could have a child in space who's now a teenager and who gets you into a warp bubble. This could happen. So many fans did not like Wesley Crusher character when it first started airing, because he kept saving the ship. But that's exactly, I know why Gene wrote that character. His son and his friends were all these genius techies with computers. And they could do things so quickly. And now, 35 years later, the people understand, because they're always asking their kid to help them fix their apps,
Right.
It makes so much more sense now.
Yeah.
I was
It
one
really
of those
does.
people that didn't like Wesley either. And now it's given me a whole nother light.
Another perspective.
Yeah, it does.
All you had to do was
I
talk to him. Talk to his mom for a few
exactly.
minutes.
Like I ask my son all the time, can you help me do this? This is acting up. He's like, Mom, you just have to, explore, press that. And I'm like, no, I might lose it. He's like, no, you're not going to lose it. Just, and that's exactly what the Wesley Crusher, he was like, he was doing that. So anyway.
Yeah. This might be a silly question, but with Will Wheaton on set, having played his mother and for so long, was there any how would you word it, Ryan? Any
like a real mother-daughter or mother-son daughter-son relationship?
Yeah, it was a very mother-daughter relationship. No. I always wanted to put ribbons in his hair, and we always argued about that.
Don't tell him I said that, please.
No, he's my space son, and we're always on Twitter talking about that. We're close. We didn't have that many episodes that it became like that, but I had actually just respected his work as an actor when I had seen Stand By Me and thought he was just amazing in that.
That's right.
And so he and I had the callback audition together. My callback was with him, and it was just easy as pie. I mean, it just worked, Yeah, I think the world of him, and I love his wife, and it was easy. I have. I'm not going to say I have maternal feelings exactly, but I really have great respect for him, and I think he's just a fantastic adult. So there you go.
Right. Didn't he do
probably due to all of my influence, right?
There
I'm
you go.
probably
Yeah, it's all your
how
fault.
great he turned out. Yeah, I think so.
I would have to agree.
Yeah.
Have to agree. Now, another question to throw your way really quick is, rumor has it online that you could possibly be appearing in Picard. Is this anything you can...
I guess I've heard that rumor.
is it just that, a rumor?
Well, first of all, nothing's filming. So it's and if I did know, I couldn't tell you. So it's kind of one of those situations. But I'd love for you to ponder it.
I'm pondering.
Just ponder it.
Yeah.
Just keep pondering it. And then maybe,
Right.
it would be fun. Do you like the show? Have you been watching it?
Oh, I love that show. It was
a good show.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I thought.
It's a really good show, I think, too.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Now, another thing to touch on Trek-wise was this, I didn't even know this existed, the Star Trek cruise, which kind of goes back to that awesome fandom that we were talking about earlier. But I think it was rescheduled due to the pandemic for 2022, is that correct?
Yeah.
And is going to be happening over your birthday. And let me see.
Well, last year's was over my birthday, too.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah, it's really funny. My birthday's March 2nd, and they always, it seems to coincide. But I was someone who just really never wanted to go on a cruise in my life. And They actually have been very enjoyable, very fun. We get to do different things that we don't usually do, and all the fans are very nice and respectful, and we all just get to hang out with each other, which is a blast, and so that's kind of what that is. But I think we're all going to want to make sure that everything is, we've got vaccines and COVID safe before any of us get on board, I'm sure.
Oh, sure.
But I'm sure
Absolutely.
it will be.
Makes
See,
sense.
that might make my wife take a little bit different idea on, because she never want to take a cruise either. But then she saw that Star Trek cruise, and that might make her think
Might
twice.
make her
But
do it.
Well, there
now
you
the
go.
Gates says something positive.
I'm on anti-nausea stuff the whole time, so I'm already lit before I step on board. But so it's very pleasant, and you do different things. You do different shows. I've played Kirk several times, and we redo old series, and for some reason I have no idea why, but I always am playing Kirk, and it's just fun. And people, like if I do a tap dance thing or something, there are people in sneakers doing it. It's not everything's very laid back is the point. So, and you can pick and choose, and I think they do a really good job with those cruises.
That sounds fun.
Would you be willing to give us your best Captain Kirk impression?
No, I wouldn't.
Okay, sorry, I just had to ask.
I have to be informed.
Okay.
Besides, it's more the way I study his intonation and his movements, and it's really it's fun because he had very particular. I'm not as handsome as he is, but he had very particular articulation and movements, and so we have a lot of fun. Obviously, I exaggerate, but.
That
There you go.
Fun.
Yeah.
Very cool. One more thing I have to touch on really quick before we talk about your show, Who Do You Think You Are, that's going to be on the NacelleCast Studios, is that I didn't know. You worked for the Jim Henson Company on Labyrinth and Muppets Take Manhattan, doing like director of like choreography and Muppet movement. What exactly was your role in these films?
Well, Muppets Take Manhattan, he had seen me in a show in New York called Cloud 9. Written by Carol Churchill. And so I got an audition for Muppets Take Manhattan, playing a secretary. And I didn't know that he'd already seen me do this 3-character role. I mean, it was a big, big role on stage. So he acted like, he'd never seen me before. But I think he had seen me do Cloud 9, and I got the part. There was no one else. Like, you never go on an audition unless you're famous, really famous, because even semi-famous people have to go on auditions and you still see each other in the room. But to play a sort of tiny role of a secretary, you would usually go to a place and you would have had 50 people in the lobby, okay? This was my first movie, and I just walked in and I'm the only one there. And Jim Henson himself brings me into his office. I mean, none of that in real life would happen, okay? So, but see, I was so stupid and naive, I didn't know any of that. I'm like, wow, I guess nobody else is going up for this movie, And so I got the part, and I did that, and still had not been talked to by him about choreography. But he knew that I had been teaching for years. I had been on faculties of a lot of theater universities. I taught at, I was assistant professor at Brandeis in the theater arts and Tisch School of the Arts, just a lot of places. I was a teacher, and he knew I did movement. He knew I directed, I did choreography. So I think the fellow who did, I'm blanking on that. What's the first movie he did before Labyrinth? It was so wonderful.
Dark Crystal?
It was kind of the wise men. Dark Crystal, yeah. The fellow who was the choreographer, more like movement specialist in that one, knew of my work. And so he told Jim about me because he was not going to be able to do this next a couple of things. And so that's how Jim found out about me. And Jim, I guess, was looking for someone who could work with some of his puppeteers on acting. Not all of them, because not all of them needed any work on it, but there were some who might have wanted to do it. And then to work with little people, some of the dwarfs who have movement problems because they have, sometimes they have very tough joints and, or how could they wear a head thing and not hurt their neck? You have to build up their muscles, and how do you articulate something if you're wearing the Mad Hatter's face is above your head and you have like a hat on, but there's all these puppeteers working the eyes and the mouth. It's quite an effort to coordinate all that. So anyway, he wanted me to do several things. I was supposed to play Jennifer Connelly's mother in Labyrinth. That's why I took the job. I wanted to get a role in that in a big film. And then British Equity would not let me. They would let me be director of choreography and puppet movement. That was my title. So it was a year of my life just about, and I had worked on another film, and the British Equity wouldn't give me permission for that either. So I just got a big special thanks. But I did all of the choreography, which was a film called Dream Child with Ian Holm. Gavin Miller was the director. He was wonderful, and that was where I first dealt with animatronics, and it was what Creature Shop is what Jim had in London, and it was state of the art for what was happening with puppets and animatronics, and I had never done it in my life. I had done minor puppets just in different theater things, but I had never actually worked something that intricate, so I was coordinating. The voice actors were there. I had real actors play, like the girl playing Alice would be there, and then I'd have the Mad Hatter, who took 7 puppeteers working his face, and then I had a dwarf who was wearing the outfit, and then you'd have all the other characters. So, it was like one thing would break down. It was a very tough shoot, but made a beautiful film, and then that was my test. I didn't realize it, but that was the test. He wanted me to do Labyrinth. And the only reason I said yes to Labyrinth was I thought I was going to act in the part, and then when I got there, British Equity would not allow me. We always allow British actors to do stuff here, but they do not let us do stuff there. So that was heartbreaking, but I did do all of the choreography, and the ballroom scene was, I walked into the set and I ran, we did all the rehearsals. I cast those dancers, and I worked with Ludo. I worked with Hobbit, Hoggle, sorry, not Hobbit, Hoggle. And a lot of the little people, all the goblins, I choreographed them, a lot of, different puppet things. And that was that. So, yeah, that was...
That's incredible.
But that's the way Jim works. I think he sort of tries you out on different things, and you're not sure where it's leading to, and then that was it. And at the end of it, Frank Oz asked me if I would direct choreography for The Little Shop of Horrors, to do The Plant, and I just wanted to go back and do acting. So I loved Frank, but it wasn't the métier I wanted to get into. I wanted to go back and do acting myself, so that's what I did.
Right. Incredible, though. Jim, wow. This is a stupid question, but you just humor me. He had to have been such an awesome guy.
Well, he obviously created all these characters that were pretty much life-changing. Just like,
Right.
What's funny is it's like Gene Roddenberry. The two of them were visionaries, is what they were, That look at the legacies both of them have left.
Exactly. Incredible. What an incredible story. Now, I know you didn't get exactly what you wanted, but all the same, I mean, damn, to have worked with those projects, awesome.
Well, I got to meet and work with David Bowie. I forgot to mention him. Yes, that was fun. I got to waltz with David Bowie, showing him Jennifer's moves. That was definitely a high point. He was so extraordinary.
Oh my God, I didn't know that. Now I'm reeling. Oh man, okay, I got to move on. I'm sorry, but thank you for.
He's fantastic in the film. He's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, you just put stars in my eyes. You put my stars in my eyes. Okay, we got to touch on your new podcast, Nacelle Company, who now has their new NacelleCast Studios. Have some new shows coming out. Gates' show being one of them, called "Who Do You Think You Are?" Can you set this show up for us?
Well, I'm still figuring it out. They came to me, they asked me, and I actually said, no, I don't think so. And then they came back, I said, no, I don't think so. And then they came back a third time, and I went, okay, the only other thing in my life that I turned down twice, and then they came back a third time, and I took it, was Star Trek. So maybe I should think about this again. It's not very often that you seem wanted by anyone in this business. And so it was very funny, because I kept going, why me of all the people? And, and they would go, yeah, but you could talk to your friends. And I said, yeah, well, that would be fun. So that's what happened. I mean, it kind of happened that way. And I'm going to be talking to my friends. And I'm figuring it all out. The working title is still Who Do You Think You Are? It might change, but I'm starting to do conversations with my friends and trying to find things that haven't been talked through on every convention circuit and stuff. It's not going to really be on Star Trek. it's going to be other things, and hopefully fun and funny, and we'll see, I figured, why not? If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and if it works, great. So that's what I'm going to be doing. And I had done a voiceover for something for Nacelle Company, and they are the nicest company. So I have to say, I feel kind of blessed that it's come my way, because I've sort of immersed myself in these are people I know, but I'm still doing research on other things and things they've done in their past and different things, just like you guys might do sometime.
Sure.
And that's really fun. It's gotten so I'm very interested and excited to see where it leads. Plus, I almost was going to give the quote. They asked me for a quote, and I was with some friends of mine who have this fantastic little dog called Luna. And I had said no, because I had been telling them, no, I'm not going to do this podcast. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I went back and forth. And finally, the dog had been afraid to take a biscuit from me all night, okay? So I got a biscuit in both hands, and I said, okay, Luna, it's up to you. The right hand, I'm not going to do it. The left hand, I'm going to do it. What do you think? And she went back and forth. I mean, it was like a dare. And she finally took the left biscuit, and I went, okay, I'm doing the podcast. I mean, basically a dog dared me to do it, and so I'm doing it.
And that's a dare you can't turn down.
Right, yep. Absolutely.
Exactly. How can you possibly turn that down?
You can't. That's fate. That's fate calling right there.
So you have the dog to thank.
Exactly. So I know you're saying this is still in development and everything, but have you guys slated like a release date, not only for the show, but like when the network's supposed to premiere, any of that kind of stuff?
We haven't yet. No.
Oh.
I mean, I've already done one conversation with someone. I have another one coming up next week. No, we haven't, because again, it kind of came out of the blue, and it's not like I'd been like you guys probably going, yeah, let's do a podcast, let's try that. It didn't come sort of evolutionary in an evolutionary way through my own feeble brain, and so I'm sort of like it's taking me time to figure out, well, what would I really like to do and talk about, and so I'm having fun, and but obviously I can't wait too long on it, so we'll see what happens.
You might be able to wait as long as you want, because last time we talked with Brian, he's just beside himself that you're going to be doing a show on their network. He's such a fan.
He is the nicest man, okay?
He really is.
He really is. He is funny. He's nice. He's just great. I feel like, I'm so lucky that he wanted me to do something with Nacelle, because he's absolutely charming. So I hope he's not disappointed. I'm sure that I'm going to need some pointers from you guys later on, but it takes time. Didn't it take time for you guys to sort of hone it and figure out?
Oh my God, yeah.
How to
It took
do
us
it?
about a year to decide what our actual work was going to be.
Like our format, like for our format to find itself. But yeah, I mean, I'd be happy. Any of us would be if you ever wanted any help or advice.
So your format, you take time, like figuring out we do an icebreaker first, and then we ask this kind of question, and then that one, and then we get to this. I mean, is that what you sort of do, or I don't know, what are your other subjects usually if it's not someone from Star Trek, or is it someone from Star Trek usually?
No, you might be the.
I think she's the first.
She's first.
First Star Trek?
Yep.
Doug Jones was on, but he's in Discovery now, I think. But first
he's
from
wonderful.
Generation.
Yeah, he's so wonderful.
Oh, he definitely.
So what do you usually do? I'm curious. I'm going to listen. What do you usually do?
Just have fun. Try to jog people's memory of things they may have forgotten from years ago. I don't know. We like to talk.
We go after nostalgia pretty hard.
Yeah.
Do like a retro topic where we, if the guest is willing, we'll, kind of get their take on stuff that we had growing up. We talk to celebrities, comic book artists, a lot of indie creators, stuff like that. Just talk to amazing people and hear their awesome stories.
And just trying being the key word, trying to be funny while we do it, but and just being as entertaining as possible, I think.
No, I mean, there's some extraordinary podcasts out there, and there's some that are, I mean, I listen to some of the investigative reporter things, like on the New York Times and stuff, and I'm like, holy cow, how can you, I mean, they've got a whole team and research teams, and it's amazing what they do. And then I listen to ones that are just conversations, and they're fantastic, too. So I think it's wonderful that there's such a wide range of stuff, so...
Yeah, there's just there are no rules. You can do whatever you want. Yeah, I mean, mind you.
All right. Well, I'm going to go with that, Jeremy. I'm going to say Jeremy said there's no rules, and it will be your fault if it fails. Basically, is that
well?
Is
that
all
doesn't
right?
make me a very good podcasting teacher.
All his fault that the podcast bombed.
Let me renege that.
I think I'll say that to Brian. Well, Jeremy,
I'll do.
it worked on there.
Don't throw me under the table, please. I enjoy his toy collection too much.
He'll never want to talk to us again.
He won't share his goodies with me anymore if you do that. Well, one more question here before we let you go. When we have someone as talented as yourself on, I like to ask anybody who's looking to get into the entertainment business, what kind of advice would you give to them?
You have to really want to do it because it's an exploration that you want to do, not for financial or returns or for fame, because that's a really tricky one. I think you have to do it because you find it exciting and you like the exploration. Like if it's going to be acting, you have to be willing to confront things about yourself and really get into who you are, and then get the technique and work. Some people can do it with just the right director, but most people have to work their asses off. And it's like a musician or anyone else. I mean, if you put the time in, usually there'll be something really interesting that comes out of it. But I think I always caution people, don't do it because you want to get famous, because that's not a good reason. You're probably going to be let down if you do it for that reason. Yeah, 1 in a million will get famous, but it's even once you get famous to sustain it. It's got to be something you love doing, and there's so many things you can explore, like the way you guys went into a podcast. Like, that's interesting, let's try it. I think that's what I recommend, and collaboration is fantastic. I look at my son, who's a composer and a musician, and it's brutal now for orchestras. He's a violinist and a composer. And, so many orchestras, including the New York orchestras, are furloughed, So if you only are into music for the money, and that's not going to do it. You're into music because you love music. And right. It's hard because you also need to have a job to sustain yourself. But I think you got to keep making music,
Right.
It's like you have to keep growing, and that's really what it's about, I think, going into the arts or going into any job. It's about self-discovery on a certain level and discovering what's around you, and that's a process that I find endlessly exciting.
That's so cool.
And depressing. Endlessly depressing, but endlessly exciting.
And great advice right there. Mm-hmm. Gates, this has been so much fun. I want to thank you so much for taking time to sit and indulge us this evening. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, well, my pleasure too, Jeremy. And really, I'm so glad that you're in Columbus. It's a great city. It really is a great city. You have one of the best antique stores for modernist furniture there. I always wander through it anytime I'm around. Take care, all of you, and happy Halloween. That was one of my favorite memories in Ohio, and nobody can do it because of COVID, but happy Halloween.
Thank you so much,
Good.
Gates.
Okay, thank you guys. Take care.
All right, everyone, and there it was, our interview with Gates McFadden. My God, again, that was such a great time, and I want to thank her so much for being on this show. And, when the podcast does drop, when there are dates released and stuff, we will keep you guys in on the know, because I'm just as excited. I cannot wait to hear this show. I mean...
Get her back on and talk about her podcast.
You can see right here she was a conversationalist, so she's a good person to be behind a mic for a podcast, I would say, right?
Absolutely.
Right? It makes sense. It's going to work.
She's so lovely. I mean...
Absolutely.
As lovely as I ever hoped she would be.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yep. So, very good episode, boys. Once again, Gates, thank you so much for being here. And Jack, what do we have on the website?
Go to cannedairpodcast.com, where you can see show highlights, guest info, listen to the show, follow us on all our social media, buy some merch, become a patron. If you have any questions that we can't answer, send us an email on our contacts page.
You got that down.
I do.
And don't forget to find us on Twitter at CannedAirPod and on Instagram at Canned_Air. And just go to the website, click on the Patreon link, click on the merch link. We need to start doing t-shirt commercials like we used to do back in the day. Those were fun. Yeah. Those were fun. So maybe we'll start doing that next week. Remind me.
Okay.
But what am I forgetting, gentlemen? Anything?
So if you're sitting home bored on a Tuesday night around 9 p.m., why don't you hop on and listen to Jack and I make a total idiot of ourselves on our game show where we play Jackbox and, win some prizes, hang out.
Our Facebook page, YouTube page, or Twitch page, you can find us. So
tons of places
to watch. If you can't find us, then I don't know what you're doing. You're not.
That you're not trying.
Internet.
You're
the
not
stream
trying.
probably crashed.
You're not on the internet. That's
Don't internet at all.
You don't internet. All right, I think that's going to do it for this episode. So until next time, I am Jeremy Colley.
I am Jack Doherty.
I'm Randy Hardenbrook.
And I'm Ryan Donahoe.
Thank you so much for listening, everyone, and always remember to be excellent to each other.
A dog! Hi, puppy! Nice puppy! Oh no!
Don't run, it'll only make things worse.
Mutt!
Remember, you never want to approach a stray dog, especially one that's foaming at the mouth. Get away from the animal as quickly as you can and tell a grown-up. And knowing is half the battle.
G.I. Joe!
This has been a Canned Air production.